Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Lego Leaf, the Reaching here, bringing you my first ever Lego Hobbit review. Today we have the Lego Hobbit Lego game. This is the Unexpected Journey game. It's a quest to test your memory skills, and here's a front look at the Lego games Hobbit packaging box thing. Really awesome looking box. I really love these Lego game boxes. They're very good quality cardboard, and of course they do like slip open. Which, I mean, honestly, that's just like one of the coolest things ever, that they slip open, so that's really cool. Here's a look at the back of your box. It specifies it includes 389 Lego pieces, 4 microfigures, and the set retails for about $35 US. Sorry for my failure to open the box, a little bit hard to open behind the camera, but here's a look of it in the inside, some cool directions how to put the entire game in. I just have some of my game pieces lying around inside there. Now you get one manual here. This is a instruction manual, and I wanted to show you an advertisement at the back. It does have about 28 pages of building, but you do get an advertisement for some of the Hobbit figures at the back. And now we all know what the sets are, and they look extremely great. But we've got like Thorin there, Bilbo, Gandalf, and this is Dwalin, and this is either Dorinari or Ori. I'm not quite sure which one that is, but these Hobbit sets are coming December 1st, and they look amazing. Along with the actual manual, you get a thing in many different languages on how to explain the game. It takes a while to get used to the game, but if you read this over and over again, you'll get the rules pretty quickly. Now there are quite a few game pieces to go over, so let's go over the small ones first, but I want to talk about the micro figures, which are very cool. A little bit disappointing considering the Lego Star Wars game came with like 30 or 40 micro figures. You only get 4 in the set, but they're still really nice. See if we can focus there. That is the Gandalf micro figure. That is Dwalin right there. These micro figures look really cool. We also get Feely and Keely. So some really nice micro figures, and basically the reason the other dwarves are not in micro figure form is because you're supposed to find them. That's basically the objective of the game. Now the other pieces to go over here are lots of rules around these guys, so it might take me a while to explain, but you do get the dice, which is a really cool design, and most of the dice just has numbers on it, but you do get this really awesome looking map of Middle Earth with the Lonely Mountain and Smog on it, so that is really cool. You also get a little crowbar piece, which is basically the only reason it exists is that you can take pieces off like that, so that is really cool. And I'll show you what those torch pieces do later. You get a couple extra ones here. There's some own rules behind these. I won't explain those quite yet, but those are still pretty cool. It's Bilbo and Thorin. And then you get these guys, which are the main game pieces. You get a dwarf game piece. This one is food. This is a Hobbit, specifically Frodo. And this one is called a rune. And yeah, so let's explain how this works. Alright, so here is our actual game board, and it actually looks really cool. I love the little miniature Hobbit hole designs. Got a little kind of, I guess, checkpoint-ish thing in the middle, kind of random. You can rearrange the game board. If you can tell, these are the hinge kind of pieces. I'm not going to do that for you guys. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Only problem I have with it is pretty fragile when you try to pick it up and put it into the box and stuff. So basically, I think if you're going to play this a lot, you might want to leave it out on a table or something, but it is a little bit fragile. But now let's explain how the game works. So let me set up the game board for you here real quick. Okay, now the game board is completely set up. You can probably tell that each of the Hobbit halls has a roof, and they all look really cool. So this is how you play the game. So basically, the youngest player starts first, and they roll a die. I'll just roll it randomly. So we got a 3 there. Now, basically, you can pick any character you want, and you start in one of the 4 corners. So we'll put this guy right there, something, and this guy right there. And when you roll a 3, you have to move according to where the paths connect. So either by a bridge, but he couldn't, move like there to there because there's no path connecting there, but he can move all the way down to here and whatnot. So, if he moves down to here, basically you take the little torch, and this is what the torches are for. You put it on top of the Hobbit hole and it lifts up, and there we got a rune. So now what runes do, you get to try to look all around the other board for another rune. Now I set this up randomly so you guys don't think that I'm like a master at this. So if I find 2 runes, I get to keep those little things. I get to, no wait. No, I don't. No, okay, hold on. Sorry. So if I find 2 runes, I have to look around the board. And if I find a dwarf, which I did, I get to keep the dwarf and the runes. So I get these to keep. You put them in front of yourself. And basically the objective of the game is to find the most dwarves. And once all 10 dwarves are found, the game is over. and whoever has the most dwarves win, and if it's a tie, whoever has the most overall game pieces wins. Now there are other game pieces to this, such as the Hobbit game piece. So if I find a Hobbit game piece, then I go try to look for another one. I get to keep both of them. And then what I do, all the other players have to cover their eyes, and I get to look around the board and be like, I wonder what's here. I look at it myself like, oh, there's a dwarf there. Now I don't get to keep that dwarf, but I do get the advantage of knowing that that dwarf is there. So if I roll on this one, which is probably the best one to roll on, is the little map thing, is that basically if you roll on this, you can go anywhere you want on the board. So if I rolled that on my next turn, I get to move over to this Hobbit hall and be like, oh yeah, I actually already knew there was a dwarf there. Now this is kind of a matching game. You need to remember where things are in order to beat your opponents, which, you know, it's actually kind of fun. It's a little bit frustrating because a lot of the times you do forget, but it is still pretty cool. And there's one more piece to go over, which are only on the bottom. Now basically, we're just gonna rip off a couple pieces. 2 dwarves, wow, that's weird. We're just gonna rip off a couple pieces here. There are pieces on the bottom, which is cool too, and these ones are food. Now food is interesting, so if I find one food, I get to go looking for another food. And you already know that food has to be on the bottom, so you go over here, look for food on the bottom, and I think this is food. Yeah, there's another food. So if I found 2 pieces of food, I get to keep those tiles, and that also means that I get to take one of my opponent's dwarf pieces, and I get to eat it from them, basically, so that's really funny. And on the first turn, if you just randomly select and find a dwarf, you can be like a dwarf that wants more dwarves, and you can risk this dwarf and you go looking for another dwarf, and you find another one, you can risk it again, go looking for another one. But if you go risking again and you just randomly pick a key and oh, it's a rune, you have to give back your dwarf. So it's a risk, might be willing to take. It's only available like on the first turn, so that's kind of cool. And that's basically the gist of the game. One other thing here are the Bilbo and the Thorin little tiles. I really like these tile pieces. I believe they're relatively new. They came in some Ninjago sets, but they're new to me, and they're all printed. You get lots of printed pieces in this set. So basically, you can replace Bilbo with one of those little Hobbit Frodo tokens, and if you find Bilbo along with a Frodo token, you can get the regular ability that the Hobbit tokens do, and you can also take one of your dwarves from your opponents. And then Thorin is a little bit weird. You can replace him with one of the regular dwarf tokens, and what you do with him is basically he can only be found last among all the dwarves. So if somebody finds Thorin and it's not the last dwarf to be found, they have to put it back. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I don't really know if I'd ever use this one, but the Bilbo one does kind of add a little bit of surprise to the game. So final verdict on the Hobbit game, I really like it. Only problem is, basically once you get towards the end of the game, it gets a little bit harder to find things and it kind of gets repetitive, but it's really fun. It doesn't take that long, about 10 to 15 to maybe 25 minutes. It's ages 7+. It's kind of a confusing game if you're a 7-year-old. I really recommend you be a little bit older. It's really fun to play with maybe 2 to 4 people. It's just a really fun game, and I definitely highly recommend you go get this, especially if you're a Hobbit fan. It's definitely worth the money, great value, and I would give it a 9 out of 10. I think it's a really great game, and I'd highly recommend it. So this is LEGO Leaf 329, signing off.